Hi there. Welcome to, week 5, step 4, which is, I think that I put that wrong in the notes. I'm getting confused. Yes, this is week 5, and it is step 4. And the topic for today is know your fears. We're going to talk a little bit about stress and the physiological effects that stress has on your body and how that looks like fear and how that translates to fear. Quick review as to what we've done so far while people are joining us. We started off just kind of with an overview of the course and what your self-esteem is. And it's an attitude, yes, but it's more, it's a pattern. It's a mold, if you will, that you've created for who you are and who you are capable of being. And it limits you. You cannot outperform your self-esteem, but you can increase your self-esteem. You can create a larger playing field for yourself, a larger arena, room for yourself to grow into, and create a green growing edge for yourself and be in what I like to call the grow zone, which is outside of your comfort zone before you're panicking, the sweet spot where you're becoming better and better every day and really loving your life. And then in week 2, we looked at step 1, which was to figure out what you lost over the years. When we were all born knowing, all-knowing geniuses, able to do and see and have everything and knowing that about ourselves. And as we grew, we learned to look into the eyes of other people and look away from our still small voice and our own inner knowing to forces outside of ourselves. And so, well, what did we give up? What dreams did we give up as a child when we were told that to stop daydreaming and be realistic? And how are you going to do that when before all of those doubts entered into our heads? Well, what does that dream life look like? And we started working on a vision for what our life could truly be. Were we able to bust through these limits of our self-esteem? And then we took a look at that dream and kind of tested it to see if it is still our real dream, if it still applies to the person that we are as a grown-up, and if it's worthy, if it is doesn't cause us to compromise our goal or our values, if it requires us to grow, if it requires help from a higher power. So we kind of looked at our dream to make sure that it was still worthy of us. And then last week we talked about how to increase our feeling of deserving. We talked about how we cannot possibly be more deserving, that we are deserving and worthy, and we're a son or daughter of God, of the infinite, of the force that creates worlds and beats our heart. So we are completely deserving, and how we can go about convincing ourselves of that and giving ourselves that sense of deserving. Our homework for last week was to write a series of empowering I am statements. I am worthy. I am divine. I am a child of God. I am beautiful. I'm slim. I'm rich. I'm abundant. Anything that comes after I am and that is something that you see as good is an empowering affirmation statement that will help you to reprogram your subconscious and increase your self-esteem and create a larger pattern for you to grow into. So this week we're talking about knowing our fears. It's been said that there are only really 2 emotions. One is love and one is fear. And everything else is all grouped up in there. Anticipation and excitement and eagerness and enthusiasm. Those are all feelings of love. And anger and hatred and bitterness are all just a representation of fear. And that kind of makes a lot of sense to me. And not that fear is, we're hardwired for fear, and we are hardwired to respond to fear because it keeps us safe. We didn't always live in the safe environment that we live in now. So do a little imagination exercise with me. Imagine that it's 10,000 years ago, and you're out with a small hunting party trying to gather meat and food and plants and hunting and gathering in preparation of the coming winter. Well, then you hear a sound that you know what the sound is, and you recognize it, and it sends fear trickling down your spine. It's the sound of a saber-toothed tiger. Now, there's the next couple of minutes have just become the most important minutes of your entire life, because what happens next could very well be the answer to whether you survive to another day or not. And so your body is programmed to respond to that. So anything that you don't need in this very next 2 minutes of survival shuts down. You don't need your sex hormones. Those are gone. We're not worried about fighting off diseases. If we don't make it through the next 2 minutes, what do we need an immune system for? So your immune system completely shuts down. The blood rushes from all of your vital organs and into your arms and legs. And you know this feeling that you have been severely frightened and jolted by an almost car accident or something like that. And you know this feeling of how when all of your blood is rushing to your extremities to get you ready to run, to get you ready to either flee or to fight. And clever, amazing, wonderful bodies that we have, your blood actually begins to get thicker and stickier. Your platelets pump themselves up and get ready for clotting in the event that you're injured by the saber-toothed tiger. It's getting ready to repair any injuries that might happen to you. Awesome in this next 2 minutes, but as you know, big, thick, sticky platelets are not good in the long run for your heart. And so all of these things are happening in our bodies in this fight or flight response that happened 10,000 years ago in the face of the saber-toothed tiger. Well, so whatever happens. We get away, the saber-toothed tiger's distracted by a gazelle, or we're lunch and this is our very last day. But either way, that fight or flight response is done. It served us. And then it's gone and we're back to normal. And so, and with no harm done, all of this helped us to survive. But what's happening to us in this modern world is we're experiencing that same fight or flight response in our everyday lives every day. And this is creating chronic stresses within our body that, you know, our immune systems are suffering. We have more illnesses and diseases than ever in history. Even though we're getting smarter and more technologically advanced, we still keep creating more ways to manifest these toxic thoughts and fears and the things that are happening in your body as a result of stress. So a couple of ways to deal with this everyday stress that, you know, we're kind of off the fear category, but we will get back to that, is in meditation, you learn to be a responder instead of a reactor. So you take back your power to choose how you're going to feel about any certain situation. So the saber-toothed tiger, you could say, okay, that I have a minute to decide how I'm going to respond. That doesn't really happen. But if your boss hands you back a report that you just worked weeks and weeks and weeks on and says this is horrible, you're starting all over, your body and your fight or flight response is still kicking in if you are a reactor. If you are a responder and you have trained yourself to give yourself a moment to stop and say, okay, you know what? This is not a saber-toothed tiger. This is not life or death. This is not really of any importance at all in the grand scheme of things. And I'm going to choose what my response is going to be to that. And I'm going to choose whether I'm going to allow that to just completely affect my health and make me sick. Or if I'm going to put it in perspective and say, okay, you know what? Maybe he had a bad day. Maybe it really is a bad report. We'll just regroup and we'll do it over and we'll see what happens from there. But whatever you want, if you want to get mad, sure, go right ahead and get mad. But make it so that it's your choice, that you are choosing what your response is going to be. You're not just at the mercy of everything that's happening around you and just reacting all the time. And one key way of doing this is meditation. And this is scientific fact. You can find it anywhere on the internet, that they did studies of people who meditated just for 30 minutes a day for 8 weeks. And then they tested this response stimulus. So and the way that they did that is at the beginning of the test, they said, okay, I'm about to put this match that was just lit and still hot on your arm, and it's going to burn. It's going to hurt a little bit. You know, it's not going to really hurt you, but it's going to hurt a little bit. And every single person, all non-meditators, reacted to the thought of that pain before the pain actually happened. Brainwaves, physiological responses, you might as well have gone ahead and burned them just by suggesting that you burned them. So half of this group went off and lived their lives normally. The other half meditated for 30 minutes a day for 8 weeks. They came back and did the same test. Now, the non-meditating group, they responded to the suggestion of pain just like they had before. The meditating group, after just 8 weeks, when they were told, I'm about to burn you, there was no response until the burn actually happened. So that they were able to make their decision and consciously be aware of what was actually happening and control what their response was to it. So this works in every single thing in your life. So meditation is the healthiest thing that you can do for your life and for your management of stress. So fears. Fear is what keeps us from achieving the things that we want to achieve in almost every instance. And, if I ask you right now, well, what are you afraid of? You're very likely going to say, nothing, I'm not, there's nothing that I'm afraid of. Fear doesn't always show up looking like fear. It's like a Delilah. It sneaks in and seduces you and shows up as logic and shows up as practicality and in disguise. But the end result is the same, in that instead of attempting something that means a lot to you, you let the fear hold you right back where you are. And this primal part of your brain where all of the fight and flight responses are, that conceives any type of change that you are trying to make in your life as a threat, as a danger. Now, this part of your brain doesn't care about your happiness. It doesn't care about your growth. It doesn't care about what it's going to say on your headstone, what your eulogy is going to say. All it cares about is keeping you alive. And any sort of change, no matter how wonderful the end result might be, to your primal brain looks like a threat. And so your survival mechanism is trying to hold you back in the place where it's safe. It might not be comfortable, it might not be happy, but it is what you know and it is safe. So just being able to recognize that, opening your eyes to what is actually going on. It could be that let's talk about work. You have always wanted to be promoted into a higher position in your workplace, and yet you've never gone and applied. And it wasn't, you don't really see that the reason you're not applying is you're afraid of not getting it. You're afraid of failing. You're afraid of the feelings of rejection. You might rationalize and say, oh, well, I don't have the education for that. Oh, my knees would never allow me to be able to do that job. And all kinds of excuses that will come up that aren't really the real excuse. The real excuse is that you're afraid. And the neat thing about recognizing a fear is that all of a sudden it doesn't have any power over you anymore. Sometimes people will get their hearts broken and they'll say, well, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. I was not meant to be in a relationship. And instead of trying something new or trying something different with someone new, facing that fear of being hurt again takes some of the oomph out of that fear and allows you to work past it. And, watch any kid jumping off a high dive for the first time, terrified. And then once they're able to push past that fear and that first jump into the pool is so exhilarating and so much fun and moving past the fear to get to what you want, most of the time, the things that you want, the more money, the great love, the great accomplishments, there's going to be fear on the way that you need to push past and work around and not let fear be the driver of your life. Understand, recognize, love your fear. Let it be a companion in your life. In her book, she was the girl who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, her new book, something about magic, big magic. She talks about fear in that book in a really great way. Like, you're going on vacation and fear is going to come along. It's part of your life. It is something that you just deal with and it's here. But doesn't get to drive. You talk to your fear. Say, fear, I know that you're coming and that's all right. But you don't get to drive. You don't even get to ride in the front seat. You get to ride in the back. And I don't really want to hear anything from you either. So, making friends with it, recognizing it, taking away its power, and then using that as a stepping stone to get to what it is that you really want. So, for our homework this week, I want us to think back on our lives and think of a time when there was something that we really wanted. Maybe you aspired to be a singer and you were going to go and do an audition and you got sick at the last minute instead. Look back on that. Was it fear? that made you sick, or fear and paradigms can show up in a lot of different ways. So just take a really close look at opportunities that you might have let past you, and see what that fear might have been about, and so how it might still apply to your life, and if it's having any influence in your life, if there's a way that you can take advantage of that fear and use it as a stepping stone towards what you want. So you can always do a free strategy session with me. If you go to timewithlauren.com, grab yourself 30 minutes. If there's something on your mind that you want to talk about, if you want to explore these concepts a little bit further, if you've had the spark of a dream ignited in you and want to delve into it a little bit deeper, and you want to get some help and some guidance with that, take advantage of this free 30-minute session. It's a $250 value, and just might be the conversation that really gets you on the path that you want to be in. We've got a few more weeks of this course, and of course I try to keep these videos available, and I try to remember to put your homework up there. And always send me your questions. You can email me at lauren@behappyfirst.org, or post on my Facebook, send me smoke signals, anything you want, any way that you want to get in touch with me. I'm here, and this is what I do, and this is what I love, and I'm happy to help. So until next Tuesday afternoon, remember to be happy first. Happiness is a choice, and I'll see you next week.